Hello and welcome to the next part of the unnamed cart build. I've ordered a bunch of parts, most of which have arrived. We're still waiting on a couple of things, but at least we can start getting progress done. You may or may not see some of these parts not even get used. There's a fair amount of the parts here that are placeholders, meaning I already have them on hand and I want to get this thing running as soon as possible, so we're going to use them, but they're not my first choice. So there's a good chance that they'll be replaced in the future. I think the order of operation here is going to be figuring out the front end stuff first. So I do have the shocks, I have the racking pinion, I do have the front tubes. Oh, the note on the back is 9/16. This is my biggest grievance with home built stuff is hodgepodge hardware. Most people, they just use what they have. It makes it suck because like taking these two off so far, I already have 4 different tools out and it's probably not going to be enough. And that's not even a bolt, that's a stud with a nut welded on one end. In the trash you go. I'm guessing these shocks are gonna suck, but they were also super cheap. If they actually do what they say they're gonna do, would be good, but we all know they're not, so. Like that's just sketchy stuff. These mounts seem to be original, the shocks don't, because both the mounts require bushing style shocks, which these are not, they've just been squished. So these are probably just some eBay garbage, which these are also eBay garbage, but they're modern eBay garbage, so. Oh, and they don't fit, that's great. Well, that sucks. The shocks do fit without bushings in. All I really have to do is cut off this lip on each bushing. That way it can actually sit in the shock and not have like this lip on the outside. The bracket that these mount to is hitting the neck of the shock. So I can either notch the bracket or notch the shock. I don't want to do either of those because ideally I want to move these mounts to the center of these control arms, like put a tube in here, notch it, put it in the center, and then move it. That way these aren't at a weird angle. But as of right now, I'm not going to tackle that simply because I don't have a tubing notcher. So we're just going to disregard that and add it to the list of future things that need to happen. That is a substantial improvement with stiffness and also appearance. But, you know, we have to ride on them and see what they do. That's all my weight, and they're not compressing much, which is awesome. Before, I could put like half my weight on it and they would fully collapse. So they're still at weird angles, that still needs to be addressed. But as of right now, that's perfectly fine. And it looks like it did lift it a little bit. I'll have to check with measuring tape. We're still going off the plan that these shocks would have lifted the front end about 1/2 inch, which means it's 2.5 inches higher than the rear. And then with the rear tires off the blaster, it should level out about right. So that's all good. I'm gonna go ahead and pull the tires off, put new tubes in them, put them back on, and then we can move on to something else. I'm not gonna film the wheels because they're a pain in the butt. I'm gonna try to get the steering components out of here now, but I'm probably gonna have to cut this firewall and whatnot. It doesn't even line up right now anyway. It's gonna suck a lot more because the plating is here. If this was a normal go-kart where I had access to everything, but now it's all plated in, getting a Sawzall and disc grinder and stuff in here is gonna suck. So there's one tie rod out. This tie rod's also bent, or rather they might have welded it crooked. That's probably at least part of why it's steered so poorly. It looks like this bracket was previously there and they cut a hole in the firewall for that location. Then they moved it later. So I cut it down here and also on the steering shaft side because both were just welded in. The issue now is that it can't come out. Because again, steel plating causes lack of maneuverability. So I need to, I guess, cut it again, like up here somewhere, and then get it out. I really have no idea what's happening here. The steering components are out, which is good because I'm pretty frustrated and I don't want to mess with it anymore right now, at least. In the meantime, we're going to remove anything that has the yellow markings on it. So that would include the brake lever thing that they built, the battery box, and those 2 tabs back there. They're either in the way or not going to be used. Well, I've done a couple hours worth of work and I've only now just realized why people don't enjoy buying other people's projects. The more I look at this thing, the more I realize that a lot of it just needs to go away before I can start building onto it. I probably spent a dozen hours cutting, grinding, welding, all the nasty work I don't enjoy doing just to get it to the point where I could potentially start building. And even then, I'm still finding more stuff that needs to be removed. I'm pretty sure the person who built this was just eyeballing it, and there's no way that they would have thought any of this stuff was straight or level unless they had clubfoot, because nothing lines up. It's a mess. So for example, the battery box is gone. Now that the battery box is gone, I realize that these 2 tubes are not lined up whatsoever. They're just kind of placed in there. Why? I have no idea. These 2 tubes don't line up. They're about a 1/2 inch off. This plate is about 2 inches longer than the side you can't see, and they just placed a tube at the end of it and didn't weld it top or bottom. They just kind of hammered the metal in around the bend of the original frame. I don't know how they would ever have expected the other side to match when the material's just not there. The right answer would probably be to remove these square tubes. I wish I hadn't just welded them, but in any case, they don't really line up, and I think when I go to put the seat in, they're going to be too far forward. So I can probably still put the seat in here, and then I need to put another set of square tubing up front. I can't do anything about it really because these tubes are in a fixed position. So I'd rather not build until the garbage is gone. It's to be determined how much I cut out of this. I have material and I can weld it, but I don't have a tubing notcher and I don't have a tubing bender. So there's a finite amount of things I can do, and I prefer to not cut out things if I can't replace it with proper stuff. But in any case, everything marked with yellow is kind of like a question mark. I need to do something about it, or I could just ignore it. I don't really know yet. It's just an area that could be addressed. But again, for another example of things that are sketchy, the rear sprocket is like a 40 chain, I think. It's a weirder size. It's not 35, it's not 420. And on top of that, see how far away it is from the engine plate? I think they were either using a CVT or a jack shaft previously, and then they welded that sprocket way far out there. So if I were to ever put an engine on here, I'd have to move it way closer to that sprocket and then probably only have 2 bolts holding it in, because there's no way to line it up just with a regular centrifugal clutch to that sprocket. It's just, it will never line up. And it's all welded, so I can't move the sprocket or the brake disc. Secondly, the brake disc hits the frame. Listen. I don't know if the brake disc is warped. I don't know if the bearings are shot and have moved. I don't know if they just welded it crooked. I have no idea what happened, but I don't know how anyone could think that would be acceptable. It's looking like this axle needs to go away entirely. Like, everything about it is ghetto, and to make this work with the components I have is going to cost so much more time and aggravation that it's honestly probably not worth it. I just need to get the original seat frames modified to handle the universal sliders that I bought. Both the seat and these sliders came off Summit Racing. I just looked up power sport seat and they came up. So all I need to do is notch out the seat frame to accommodate the lever. It's going to go on there, obviously drill holes and all that and make it mount. And then a piece of wire needs to go from this side to the other side so that they both work in unison. The seat was the cheapest seat I could find that could accommodate a harness, and it was like 50 bucks. And the harness has a safety thing that expired like 8 years ago. So obviously that's not going to be used for long. It's all placeholder stuff. Doing a real quick cost benefit analysis, I've decided that this axle is not worth even bothering to try to make work, because literally every component of it is garbage, and it would cost too much time than it would be to just straight up replace it. So we're gonna go ahead and just cut it out. I'm gonna go ahead and get that done. The seat is also in place. I've realized that you can't see it, but up there's that bracket that the old fuel tank was on. I need to just cut that off entirely, because the seat can come back way further, but it can't because your head would be in the way of that bar, or vice versa, the bar's in the way of your head. That one broke, also good. There is an actual hub used to attach this rotor to the axle, and I can already see one of the bolts they used is just a self-tapping one. So it's like, you didn't even put any effort into finding a bolt that would have worked there. You just put something in there and ruined the thread because you're stupid. I'll be happy when I can throw this thing in the trash. Basically, the only thing I'm doing here is trying to get the rotor out of here because I might be able to use it. This is what I'm talking about. Metric, SAE, and also a self-tapping. Like, just, I don't understand. Oh wait, there we go. Yeah, to drop it out. Perfect. And this can just go right in the trash. I'm gonna go ahead and get this bracket cut off, because again, it hits your head. And I'm not sad because it's all ghetto welded anyway. Oh, there was water in it. I was wondering what was steaming. Okay, the new axle kit has come in. I'm gonna go with 57 tooth, 35 chain to start. I do have a new engine I can show you in a little bit, which this sprocket will be adequate for. And the bearings don't fit on the axle. Well, I guess I'm gonna fumble with this for a while until I can get the bearings onto the axle, because I can't really do anything if they don't even work, which this was one single kit. You would think they would all go together. So it's either user error on my end or they are straight up just not the right parts. Okay, so we gotta get all these set screws out. And it's kind of asinine to me that the builder of this kit, oh, that one's a different size. And that one's just missing entirely. Anyways, as I was saying, the supplier of this kit went out of their way to get SAE hardware. You know it comes from China. Like, why are you lying to yourself? Well, one of the bearings is wrong. So that's just great. Well, that wasn't horrific, aside from parts that don't work. So obviously the two rear brackets need to come off, gas tank, air filter, all the stock stuff on the top end will come off, which will give us a little bit more space. But yeah, that's actually fairly close, which I'm happy with. The seat is currently in the position it needs to be for me to be comfortable driving the thing, and the engine touches the seat. So I prefer to not have the hot thing touching a thing that can melt. Did end up finding this engine at a really good deal. It ended up being $100 for a GX160 with electric start, and I wasn't even particularly looking for them. The marketplace recommended it to me, and it just happened to be in the exact area I was already going, so I didn't go out of my way, and I got a running GX160 for $100. So I really can't complain about that. To buy this engine new would have been like $400-ish. Probably goes without saying that the wiring is awful. Both ends have electrical tape and garbage just stuck together, and some of them actually have heat shrunk butt connectors. But again, we aren't going to be using it as it sits. All we need is the ignition cylinder. I need them to be longer. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the ignition cylinder out of here and then mark the wiring and then cut it. That way I don't have to keep moving this around when I move the engine around. Not really sure how this comes apart, but we'll just figure it out real quick. Well, that is substantially more complex than I thought. So, new plan, we're going to put this back together and just cut it on the engine side. And then just rewire this when I feel like it, which is not right now. No gasket, not surprised. This filter and spark plug are original. Yep, looks like shit. Okay, in the trash. See if I can get this whole assembly off without taking the fuel line off. I don't really feel like dealing with that right now. Okay, all goes in the trash. I think I'm just gonna go ahead and pull the plug, replace it, pull the studs, and then tape up the ports and then put it back on the frame, and then we can actually bolt it down and start lining everything up. For now, like, it's dirty, but it runs, it's fine, and all that stock crap can get thrown away, but I'll just come back to it later and give it an actual servicing when it comes time. I know for a fact I already filmed this. I either lost the footage or the camera wasn't actually recording. I don't really know, but I made a dash out of cardboard just to like mock it up, see how it's gonna be. I'm not really sure about what I'm gonna make it out of material-wise yet, if I want it removable. Like, there's a lot of small details I need to figure out. But in any case, it's kind of just here as a mock-up. I was also thinking of doing a Lexan windshield. As it sits currently, the steering wheel would hit the windshield. So either the steering wheel needs to come towards the driver more, or we just can't do a windshield. Either way, it's easy to fix. I'm not really worried about it. I'm gonna do a quick disconnect steering wheel because I already have them, and two, it is kind of hard to get in and out of this thing, so the more space I can give, the better. It's just a Speedway quick disconnect for 5/8 shaft, which is most go-kart steering shafts. I already threw out the box for that one, but I have the part number for a different one that I have, which is, the only difference is that this one's black and that one's purple. Doesn't really matter, but there's the part number. There you go. This steering wheel I will probably actually use. I don't mind it. It's a Grant one, it's aluminum, it's fairly decent, it's in decent condition, and it came with the cart, so I'm fine with not having to buy another one. I've made a little bit of progress back here. Clutch is on, brake disc is on, caliper's kind of in place, header's on, intake's on. You know, everything's kind of where it needs to be. Lots of little issues have come up, like the spark plug boot, the original one is really long and really close to the header, so cut it off and put an MSD one on there. Also, it's ugly, so I like the MSD one better. If I were to put a carb on this intake, it's going to be hitting the frame. So what's going to have to happen is I'm going to cut this flange off and then use a section of like 30-degree radiator hose to turn the carb away. That way it'll sit like over here. And then even with the uni filter that I plan to use, there should be enough space. The header, I'm not happy with it, but it's kind of hard to figure how these things are going to look without actually putting them on the engine, which means you have to buy them first. So that'll probably either get not used or cut up and changed because I don't want it just sticking out the back of the cart. Clutch is on. I just bought the cheapest one possible. It's probably going to fry really quickly, but you know, I just got to get everything in place first to make sure the thing will actually even work. I bought a 8-inch brake disc, which is over there. You can kind of see it. Just a generic solid disc. Like, it's not great, but it'll do the job. Have a mechanical clutch on it. Again, not great, but it'll work. I still need to have the hubs milled out to attach the wheels. Right now they're just hanging out on the axles, which is fine. I noticed small things I need to get fixed, like the valve cover has a breather hole in it, which can't just be left open. So I bought a really cheapy catch can off eBay. It's funny how China changes their designs every like 6 months, I guess, to like avoid getting sued. I don't even understand the process, but this one is a lot different design in the good way. It's actually baffled, which means I don't have to put like aquarium foam in there like I did the previous ones. And I mean, it's got a bunch of like English gibberish on it, which is not totally surprising for Chinese crap. And then I bought a real filter for it because the filter one that came with it was junk. Musen car refit power. Yep, that tracks. Engineered for performance. And then they have a dual cam Subaru like 253 NA motor that makes like 170 horsepower. So yeah, they got it right. I'm not really sure where this is gonna go yet, but I do have it, which is good. We're not gonna just leave that breather open because I actually do care about this engine. I don't feel like killing it prematurely. The governor delete will do that by itself. So yeah, I think it's a pretty good place to wrap up. We've made some pretty decent progress. It's kind of taken me longer than I would have liked, but we are still making progress, which is all that matters. I have a lot of small things to figure out still, all of which I can save for another episode or episodes. I think probably by the next episode, we'll have this thing running. Maybe you're driving. Definitely not braking though, because that's just too much to ask right now. For now, we're gonna cut it off here. I'm gonna keep working on it, so another episode will be out fairly soon. I don't know if it'll be the next one or not, but yeah, in any case, thanks for watching and stay tuned. What the fuck? Go in, you yay, janky bullshit. Oh, a helicopter, that's good. Ruined my footage. Speaking of authorities, they heard me talking shit. Oh, fuck you, little poofy garbage microphone thing. Just not gonna use it entirely. Wasted my time. Which, oh look, an airplane. Let's read all that footage. Thanks.